The self-destruct alarm blared relentlessly as Ilara and Calthor sprinted toward the core of the sanctuary. Behind them, the shadows grew darker, taking shape, shapes that moved unnervingly fast. They weren't alone anymore. "What are those things?" Ilara gasped, glancing over her shoulder. "Automated defenses," Calthor replied grimly. "The architects must have left them behind to protect their work." The creatures were sleek and metallic, with glowing red eyes that scanned the room like searchlights. Their movements were precise, almost insect-like, and they advanced without hesitation. One lunged at Ilara, its claws slashing through the air. She stumbled backward, barely avoiding the strike, but Calthor stepped in front of her, wielding a makeshift weapon he'd grabbed from the chamber, a metal rod torn from the wall. "Go," he shouted, fending off the mechanical beasts. "I'll hold them back." "No," Ilara protested, unwilling to leave him. But the countdown timer on the walls was ticking faster now. 3 minutes, 29 seconds. There wasn't time to argue. Reluctantly, she turned and ran toward the core, dodging more of the machines as they swarmed around her. Each step felt heavier than the last, not just because of exhaustion, but because of what awaited her at the end. Destroying the core would mean erasing everything. The experiments, the knowledge, the possibility of understanding the Accord *. But letting it remain intact meant surrendering freedom for forced unity. When she reached the core, she found herself standing before a massive sphere of pulsating energy. It hummed softly, radiating warmth and an eerie sense of calm. For a moment, she hesitated, wondering if peace truly required such sacrifices. Wasn't there another way? Suddenly, Zixel appeared beside her, his translucent skin shimmering faintly in the glow of the core. He looked battered but resolute, clutching a small device in his hand. A detonator. "You shouldn't have come here," he said coldly, though there was no malice in his voice, only regret. Ilara's heart sank. "Zixel, don't do this. We can still stop this madness together." He shook his head. "This isn't madness. It's destiny. The architects showed us the path to unity, and I won't let anyone destroy it." Before Ilara could respond, Calthor arrived, bloody but alive, holding off the remaining machines with quick, calculated strikes. Together, he and Ilara faced Zixel, forming a fragile alliance despite their differences. "You're wrong," Calthor said firmly. "Unity doesn't come from erasing who we are. It comes from respecting our differences, not forcing conformity." For a split second, doubt flickered across Zixel's face. Then, with a resigned sigh, he tossed the detonator to Ilara. "If you believe so strongly in your cause, then prove it. Make the choice you think is right." Without wasting another second, Ilara activated the detonator. The core began to destabilize, cracks forming along its surface as light spilled out in violent bursts. Alarms screamed louder, and the entire sanctuary quaked violently. "We need to get out of here," Calthor yelled, grabbing Ilara's arm. But as they turned to flee, Zixel stayed behind, his form shimmering faintly. "Go," he said quietly. "I'll hold the machines back. Someone has to buy you time." Ilara wanted to protest, but Calthor pulled her away, shouting a final thank you over his shoulder. As they raced toward the exit, the sanctuary collapsed around them, consumed by a blinding explosion. Outside, the crew scrambled into escape pods as the celestial loom drifted closer to the dying star. Ilara and Calthor barely made it aboard one of the last pods before launching into space. Through the viewport, they watched the sanctuary vanish in a burst of light. Silence fell between them, heavy with loss, but also resolve. They had made their choice, even if it came at a cost. Now, the real challenge lay ahead, rebuilding trust and forging unity without sacrificing freedom. The planet Luminara shimmered like a jewel in the vastness of space. Its surface glowed softly under twin suns, casting an ethereal light over fields of crystalline trees and rivers that sparkled as if infused with stardust. It was home to the Luminae, a race of bioluminescent beings who thrived on harmony and unity. Among them lived Zinara, a curious young woman whose luminous skin pulsed faintly with every heartbeat. Unlike many of her kind, Zinara had always been fascinated by the stars beyond her world, particularly one distant blue dot known as Earth. Her fascination wasn't shared by everyone. The Lumine Council discouraged exploration of other species, believing their own society too fragile to risk contamination from outsiders. But when the Council announced a rare cultural exchange program allowing select individuals to observe humanity, Zinara jumped at the chance. Disguised using advanced holographic technology that masked her glowing form beneath human features, she boarded a sleek spacecraft bound for Earth. When she arrived, everything felt strange yet exhilarating. Humans were so different from her people, loud, chaotic, and full of contradictions, yet there was something undeniably beautiful about them. They laughed easily, cried openly, and seemed driven by endless curiosity. Zinara spent her days observing, learning, and documenting their habits while pretending to be just another visitor passing through. It was during this time that she met Alex. Alex worked at a remote observatory nestled high in the mountains, far from the noise of cities. He was an astrophysicist, passionate about unraveling the mysteries of the universe. With his messy hair, glasses perpetually smudged with fingerprints, and a habit of talking to himself while solving equations, he wasn't what most would call conventionally attractive. But to Zinara, he radiated warmth and intelligence. She found herself drawn to him almost immediately. Their first meeting happened by accident, or perhaps fate. One evening, as Alex adjusted the telescope to track a comet streaking across the sky, Zinara wandered into the observatory, claiming she'd gotten lost during a hike. Alex, ever eager to share his love of the cosmos, invited her to stay and watch the comet's journey. As they sat side by side, gazing up at the heavens, Zinara felt a connection unlike anything she'd experienced before. For the first time, she understood why humans called certain moments magic. Over the following weeks, their encounters became more frequent. Alex taught her about constellations, black holes, and the possibility of life beyond Earth. In return, Zinara listened intently, marveling at how much humans had discovered despite their limitations. Though she couldn't reveal her true identity, she found comfort in sharing pieces of herself through stories of Luminara's glowing forests and crystalline oceans. But as their bond deepened, Zinara began to notice changes within her own body. Her normally steady glow flickered unpredictably, and she often felt drained after spending hours in human disguise. At first, she dismissed these symptoms as side effects of prolonged hologram use. But deep down, she suspected something far greater was happening. Something that could change not only her life, but the lives of both her people and humanity forever. Little did she know, her journey was only beginning. As the days turned into weeks, Zinara and Alex grew closer. Their conversations stretched late into the night, often accompanied by cups of coffee that Alex insisted was the fuel of genius. For Zinara, these moments were both thrilling and nerve-wracking. She loved learning about Earth through Alex's eyes. His passion for discovery mirrored her own curiosity about humanity, but every interaction reminded her of the secret she carried. Beneath her human disguise, she was an alien from a distant world, sent here under strict orders not to interfere with human life. Still, it was hard to resist the pull between them. Alex had a way of making her feel seen, even though he didn't know her true form. He listened intently when she spoke, laughed at her awkward attempts at humor, and never judged her for asking questions that seemed obvious to him. To Zinara, this acceptance felt like a rare gift. On Luminara, conformity was prized above all else. Individuality was often viewed as disruptive. But Alex celebrated differences, encouraging her to embrace what made her unique. One evening, as they sat on the observatory's rooftop watching the sunset paint the sky in fiery hues, Alex turned to her with a thoughtful expression. "You know," he said, "you're unlike anyone I've ever met. It's like you see the world differently." Zinara froze, her heart skipping a beat. Did he suspect something? Quickly masking her panic with a smile, she replied, "Maybe because I'm new here. Everything feels so fresh and exciting." Alex nodded, seemingly satisfied with her answer. But his words lingered in her mind long after they parted ways that night. Was she being too obvious? Could he sense the truth beneath her carefully constructed facade? Her worries deepened as her body continued to betray her. The flickering glow beneath her skin became harder to conceal, and her energy levels fluctuated wildly. Some days she felt invigorated, as if the universe itself coursed through her veins. Other times she struggled just to keep up with Alex's pace, exhaustion weighing heavily on her limbs. At first, she attributed these changes to stress or overexertion, but deep down, she knew better. Something inside her was shifting, and it terrified her. It wasn't until one quiet afternoon, while researching human biology online, that Zinera stumbled upon a startling possibility. Her symptoms aligned eerily with those of pregnancy. But how could that be? Humans and Luminae were biologically incompatible, or so everyone believed. Panic gripped her as she realized the implications. If she truly was pregnant, it meant her connection with Alex went far beyond friendship or romance. It meant their bond had created something unprecedented, a child neither fully human nor fully Luminae. For hours, Zinera sat frozen in front of the computer screen, her thoughts spiraling out of control. What would Alex think? Would he reject her? And what about her people? Bringing a hybrid child into existence would violate every law her society held sacred. Yet despite her fear, a small part of her couldn't help but feel wonder at the idea of creating life with someone she cared about so deeply. Determined to find answers, Zinera accessed classified files from the Luminae database using a secure link. To her shock, she discovered fragments of research suggesting that interspecies reproduction might indeed be possible under extremely rare conditions. The findings had been buried, deemed too controversial to pursue further. As she read through the documents, tears welled up in her eyes, not just from fear, but from awe at the miracle unfolding within her. The next day, Zinera avoided Alex, unsure how to broach the subject. Every time she imagined telling him, her chest tightened with anxiety. How could she explain something she barely understood herself? Still, she knew she couldn't hide forever. Sooner or later, the truth would come out, and when it did, their lives would change forever. The weight of her secret pressed heavily on Zinera as the days passed. She tried to act normal around Alex, but it was becoming harder with each passing moment. Her holographic disguise flickered more frequently now, and she found herself avoiding direct sunlight or bright lights altogether. Worse still, her emotions were unpredictable. Moments of joy would crash into waves of panic without warning. It was only a matter of time before Alex noticed something was wrong. One evening, after another restless day, Zinera decided she couldn't keep hiding. They had planned to stargaze together, just like they used to during their early meetings. As they climbed to the rooftop of the observatory, Alex spread out a blanket while Zinera hesitated, clutching her hands tightly to stop them from trembling. The sky above shimmered with countless stars, but tonight, she felt anything but peaceful. "Hey," Alex said gently, noticing her unease. "You've been quiet lately. Is everything okay?" Zinera swallowed hard, her throat dry. I need to tell you something. Something important." Alex tilted his head, concern etched across his face. "Okay, you can tell me anything, you know that, right?" She nodded slowly, trying to gather her courage. Taking a deep breath, she began. "Do you remember when we first met, how I told you I was here for research?" He smiled faintly. "Yeah, of course. Why?" "Well," she paused, her voice faltering. For a brief second, she considered lying, making up some excuse to explain her behavior. But then she looked at him, his kind eyes, his trusting smile, and knew she couldn't deceive him anymore. That wasn't entirely true. Alex frowned, confusion creeping into his expression. "What do you mean?" Zenera exhaled sharply, her heart pounding. I'm not human. The words tumbled out before she could stop them. I'm from another planet called Luminara. My people are bioluminescent. We glow naturally. This, she gestured to her body, is just a disguise. For a moment, there was silence. Alex stared at her, his mouth slightly open, as if unsure whether to laugh or question his sanity. Finally, he managed to speak. Wait, what? Are you serious? I wouldn't joke about this, Zenera replied softly. Reaching for the control device hidden beneath her sleeve, she deactivated her hologram. In an instant, her true form emerged, a radiant figure with translucent skin that pulsed faintly with light. Her hair shimmered like liquid starlight, and her eyes glowed faintly in the darkness. To her relief, Alex didn't recoil in fear. Instead, he leaned closer, mesmerized. Wow, you're beautiful, he whispered, awe replacing shock. Then, after a beat, he added, but why didn't you tell me sooner? There's more, Zenera admitted, her voice trembling. Something bigger. She took another shaky breath. Alex, I think I'm pregnant. With your child. This time, Alex did step back, his expression shifting from wonder to disbelief. Pregnant? That's impossible, isn't it? We're different species. I thought so too, Zenera said quickly. But somehow it happened. Our bond. It must have created something extraordinary. A hybrid child. Half human, half lumine. Alex sank onto the blanket, his mind racing. He wanted to deny it, to argue that such a thing couldn't happen. Yet, looking at Zenera, the glowing proof of her alien nature and the vulnerability in her eyes, he couldn't dismiss her words. After several long moments, he finally spoke. Does this mean you're carrying my baby? She nodded, tears brimming in her luminous eyes. Yes, and I don't know what happens next. But I need you to know, I didn't plan this. I never meant to break any rules or put you in danger. I just love being with you. Alex stared at her, his thoughts swirling. Fear, excitement, and uncertainty battled within him. But one thing was clear, he cared about Zenera deeply. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he wouldn't abandon her or their unborn child. Reaching out, he took her hand. We'll figure this out together, he promised, no matter what. In that moment, under the vast expanse of stars, their fates became intertwined forever. The decision to leave Earth didn't come easily. For days after Zenera revealed her pregnancy, she and Alex debated their next steps. Staying on Earth seemed impossible. Zenera's condition was worsening, and the baby's unique biology required care only Luminara's advanced medical technology could provide. Yet returning to her home planet carried its own risks. The Lumine Council had strict laws against interspecies relationships, let alone reproduction. If they discovered Zenera's secret, both she and Alex could face severe consequences. We don't have a choice, Zenera said one night as they sat in Alex's small apartment. Her glow flickered faintly, a sign of her growing exhaustion. If we stay here, I might not survive the pregnancy, and neither will the baby. Alex nodded reluctantly, though fear shadowed his expression. I trust you, Zenera, but what happens when we get there? Your people aren't exactly going to welcome us with open arms. I'll protect you, she vowed fiercely, no matter what it takes. With no time to waste, they began preparing for the journey. Using stolen coordinates from the Lumine database and a smuggled spacecraft hidden near the observatory, they plotted a course to Luminara. The ship, sleek and silver with glowing blue engines, hummed softly as they loaded supplies aboard. Though nervous about flying an alien vessel, Alex quickly adapted, thanks to Zenera's guidance and his own scientific knowledge. As they launched into space, leaving Earth behind, Zenera felt a mix of relief and dread. She clutched Alex's hand tightly, watching through the viewport as their blue planet shrank into the distance. "This is really happening," she murmured, half to herself. "It's going to be okay." Alex reassured her, though his voice wavered slightly. "We've got each other." The voyage wasn't without challenges. They encountered cosmic storms that rattled the ship, forcing them to work together to stabilize the controls. At one point, a swarm of scavenger drones, metallic creatures that fed on energy, attacked the vessel, drawn to its glowing engines. Alex managed to repel them using makeshift electromagnetic pulses, while Zenera channeled her own bioluminescent energy to power the ship's failing systems. Between these tense moments, they found peace in quiet conversations. They talked about their hopes for the future, the kind of parents they wanted to be, the life they dreamed of building for their child. Zenera shared stories of Luminara's glowing forests and crystalline rivers, painting vivid pictures of the world Alex would soon see. In return, Alex described Earth's oceans, mountains, and bustling cities, marveling at how different yet beautiful both worlds were. But as they approached Luminara, tension returned. The planet loomed ahead, its surface shimmering like a jewel under twin suns. However, their scanners picked up ominous signals, patrol ships and defensive barriers surrounding the atmosphere. Someone knew they were coming. "They're expecting us," Zenera whispered, dread creeping into her voice. "The Council must have tracked my hologram's energy signature. Then we'll have to find another way in," Alex replied firmly. "We didn't come this far to give up now." Using evasive maneuvers, they slipped past the outer defenses and entered Luminara's atmosphere undetected, for now. As they descended toward the glowing landscape below, Zenera braced herself for whatever awaited them. She knew the hardest part of their journey was yet to come. But with Alex by her side, she felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Together, they prepared to confront not just the Lumine Council, but the fate of two species bound by love and defiance. The moment Zenera and Alex landed on Luminara, they were surrounded. Lumine guards, their bodies glowing brightly with authority, descended upon the ship like a swarm of radiant fireflies. Before either of them could react, they were escorted, forcefully, from the vessel and brought before the Radiant Tribunal, the governing council of Luminara. The tribunal's chamber was vast and intimidating, its walls lined with pulsating crystals that cast shifting patterns of light across the room. At the center stood Melis, Zenera's mother, her expression cold and unreadable. "Zenera," Melis began, her voice echoing through the chamber, "you have betrayed everything we stand for. You violated our most sacred laws by consorting with a human. And now this." She gestured sharply toward Alex, who stood beside Zenera, his hands clenched into fists. "You bring an outsider here, carrying that asterisk within you." Zenera flinched at her mother's harsh tone, but held her ground. "Mother, please," she pleaded, her own glow dimming slightly in distress. "I didn't plan this. It just happened. But it's not something to fear. It's a miracle. A chance for us to grow, to learn from another species. A miracle." One of the elders scoffed, his form shimmering angrily. "This is an abomination. Your child will be neither fully Lumine nor fully human. It will disrupt the harmony of our society. Do you understand what you've done?" Alex stepped forward then, his voice steady despite the weight of countless glowing eyes fixed on him. "With all due respect," he said, addressing the tribunal, "your fears are based on assumptions. You don't know what this child could mean, for your people or mine. It's not a threat. It's an opportunity to bridge two worlds." The chamber erupted in murmurs as the council members exchanged heated glances. Some seemed intrigued by Alex's words, while others remained steadfast in their opposition. Melis raised a hand, silencing the room. "Enough," she commanded. Turning back to Zenera, she added, "You must terminate the pregnancy immediately. This cannot continue." "No," Zenera shouted, surprising even herself with the strength of her defiance. Her glow surged brightly, illuminating the entire chamber. I won't let you take my child away from me. From asterisk asterisk. This baby is innocent. It hasn't done anything wrong. Melis sighed deeply, pain flickering briefly across her face before she masked it once more. Then you leave us no choice. If you refuse to comply, you will both be exiled. Forever. A collective gasp rippled through the chamber. Exile was considered the harshest punishment among the Luminae, reserved only for those who committed unforgivable acts. But Zenera refused to back down. If that's what it takes to protect my family, so be it, she declared, her voice unwavering. Her courage sparked something unexpected. One of the younger council members, a soft-spoken woman named Silva, rose from her seat. Perhaps we should reconsider, she suggested cautiously. Is exile truly necessary, or are we letting fear dictate our decisions? Her words ignited a debate among the council, dividing them into factions. Meanwhile, Kale, Zenera's childhood friend and ally, slipped unnoticed into the chamber. With a subtle nod to Zenera, he signaled that help was coming. Outside, a rebellion brewed. A group of young Luminae, inspired by Zenera's bravery, prepared to challenge the council's authority. As the argument raged on, Zenera reached for Alex's hand, drawing strength from his presence. No matter what happened next, they would face it together. For the first time, cracks appeared in the rigid foundation of Luminae society, and Zenera's love for Alex had become the catalyst for change. The tension inside the radiant tribunal chamber reached a breaking point. The council members argued fiercely, their glowing forms pulsating with emotion as they debated Zenera's fate. Some clung to tradition, insisting that exile, or worse, was the only way to preserve Luminae purity. Others, inspired by Silva's words and Zenera's courage, began questioning whether their rigid laws were truly serving their people. Amid the chaos, Kale made his move. Leading a group of young rebels, he stormed into the chamber, their bioluminescent bodies shining brightly in defiance. Enough, Kale shouted, his voice cutting through the noise like a blade. We will not stand by while fear dictates our future. The council fell silent, stunned by the audacity of the intrusion. Melis stood up, her glow flaring angrily. How dare you interrupt the tribunal? This is treason. No, Kale replied firmly, stepping forward. This is hope. Zenera has shown us that love transcends boundaries, that unity doesn't mean uniformity. Why should we punish her for something that could bring light to both our worlds? His words resonated with many in the chamber, especially the younger Luminae who had grown disillusioned with the council's outdated views. They began murmuring among themselves, some even nodding in agreement, sensing the shift in momentum. Zenera stepped forward, her own glow steady and unwavering. Mother, she said softly but clearly, addressing Melis directly. I know you're afraid. I understand why you want to protect our people. But shutting ourselves off from the universe isn't the answer. My child, the child Alex and I created, is proof that we can grow stronger by embracing differences, not fearing them. Melis hesitated, torn between her role as matriarch and her instincts as a mother. She looked at Zenera, then at Alex, who stood resolute beside her. Finally, her gaze settled on the faint shimmer of life growing within Zenera, a tiny pulse of light that seemed to echo the heartbeat of possibility. Before she could respond, alarms blared throughout the chamber. The traditionalist faction of the council, unwilling to yield, had called for reinforcements. Guards swarmed the area, their weapons charged with radiant energy. Chaos erupted as the rebels clashed with the enforcers, their lights flashing violently in the struggle. In the midst of the battle, Zenera doubled over in pain. Her water had broken. The baby was coming. Panic surged through Alex as he helped her to the ground. We need to get her somewhere safe, he shouted over the din. Kale nodded, quickly organizing a retreat. With the help of the rebels, they carried Zenera to a hidden cavern deep beneath the surface of Luminara. The walls of the cave glowed faintly with embedded crystals, casting a soothing light over the scene. As Alex held Zenera's hand, She focused on breathing through the contractions, her strength waning with each passing moment. Hours passed in a blur of effort and exhaustion. Finally, with one last push, the baby emerged, a radiant being unlike anything anyone had ever seen. Its skin shimmered with hues of gold and blue, its tiny form glowing softly in the dim light of the cavern. The sight silenced everyone present, even those still loyal to the council. "It's beautiful," Alex whispered, tears streaming down his face as he cradled the newborn in his arms. Zenera smiled weakly, her heart swelling with pride and relief. "Our miracle," she murmured. Word of the child's birth spread quickly, reaching even the ears of the council. For the first time, cracks appeared in the foundation of their resistance. Many Luminae began to see the hybrid child not as a threat, but as a symbol of hope, a beacon of unity in a divided world. The rebellion gained momentum, fueled by the belief that change was possible. As dawn broke over Luminera, the fight for acceptance and a brighter future was far from over. But with their child in their arms, Zenera and Alex knew they had already won the most important battle, proving that love could create wonders beyond imagination.